Well, it's Big Daddy, and it's another Big Daddy and Friends. And like I always say, I try to bring my friends and people that are in the game, that actually do it, know it, sleep it, understand it, and explain it. So it is my honor and thrill to have my dear friend Sal Paolantonio from ESPN join us today. How you doing, Sal?
Big, I'm doing great. It's always great to see you, talk with you. Yeah, I don't. There's no one I respect more than you around the NFL. And we come from the same part of the world. We go way back and we come way forward. So it's really great to see you and hear you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And like I'm like, wow. When I knew I was going to have you on, I was so excited because obviously due to our friendship and relationship, and we go way back, and obviously we're both fans of Umberto's Pizza, so it's there's so many synergies there, and there's a lot of compelling stories to be told. So
Right. When I would come home from the Navy, so I was a surface warfare officer in the Pacific Fleet, and I would come home to Long Island to visit my folks in Stewart Manor. And before I went to my parents' house on Dover Parkway, I would stop at Umberto's for a couple of slices before I even went to see my parents. And then I'd bring a pie home to my mom and dad. And they're like, wait a second. I said, yeah, I got off the Cross Island and I stopped and had a couple of slices and saw Umberto. And my mom would say, you stopped and saw him before you saw me? Well, I'm bringing you a pie.
Well, it's funny. I was telling somebody one time that, yeah, I'm going down to see the Eagles, but I got to make a stop first. And they're like, where? I go, well, I got to go see Sal because I'm dropping off two regular pies from
Yeah.
Umberto's to Sal. Then I'll keep going to Philly. I was going to camp or whatever it was. I'll never forget Lynn, your wife, going, Big Daddy, he's going to eat one of those by himself. And I go, yeah, you told me. That's why I bought two. So,
we would meet in the parking lot of a motel, if you remember, right off of exit 4 of the turnpike, and I'd meet you there, and you'd open up the trunk like you were opening up the trunk and there was two suitcases full of money in the back, but it was really pizza. And two Italians in a parking lot, one opening up a trunk, that certainly probably would have raised a lot of eyebrows. But it was just pizza, ladies and gentlemen. That's all it was.
Yeah, it was just pizza. Well, that's why we had to make it more intimate. I had to take it to your house so no one would get the wrong idea. What are those two up to? There's got to be something, sports, money, something. What are they doing? But anyway, all good and fun. So, obviously I know the story. I'm familiar with you, obviously growing up a next town over from me, and me growing up in New Hyde Park and you in Stewart Manor. Let people know how you got started. Like, what enticed you to go into journalism, and what led to sports? And like I said, I know the whole history, so I want to share it with everybody else so they get an idea.
So I'm the oldest son, Salvatore Anthony Nicholas Paolantonio, of Marie and Vito Paolantonio. And I grew up at 68 Dover Parkway in Stewart Manor. I went to Stewart Manor Elementary School, Stanford, Stanford Junior, Albert T. Stanford, the junior high school on Hempstead Turnpike, and then Sewanaka High School. I graduated Sewanaka in 1974. And my dad put me on a bus in Hempstead, and I went up and I checked out Oneonta State. It was the only school that I checked out, and I loved it. And I wound up going to Oneonta State, met my wife Lynn there. I was an RA. She was on my Carter. And I worked at the radio station and the newspaper. I played varsity tennis for a year and a half. And went on to NYU's journalism school, a master's in journalism. I just got the bug to, as a writer and a broadcaster early on. And after I got my master's degree, I joined the United States Navy, big because my whole family, my dad's brothers, all my uncles on both sides of my family were either in the Navy or the Marine Corps. In some in World War II. My namesake, my uncle Sal, who's my mom's oldest brother, was actually in World War II, or the Korean War. And my dad was 4F'd because he had cataracts at birth. So it was really sort of preordained that I would go into the military. So I spent 5 years on the high seas as a surface warfare officer in the 6th Fleet. And then when I got out, we were in Pearl Harbor. My wife was pregnant, and we moved up to Albany, New York. And I got hired by the late, great Harry Rosenfeld, who was the executive editor of the Albany Times-Union. And Harry, if you know, was a city editor at the Washington Post during Watergate. And he hired Bob Woodward, who was a former Navy officer. So I'm not saying that I was going to be the next Bob Woodward, I told him, but you gave Bob Woodward a shot. How about giving me a shot? So I spent 12 years in newspapers, 2 at the Albany Times-Union, 10 at the Philadelphia Inquirer, and the last 2 years at the Inquirer. After covering politics, I covered the Eagles, and I was doing a guest shot on TV in Philly, and an ESPN producer happened to be in town on a family function, and he saw me on TV, and he called me up on the phone, and he said, "Are you interested in auditioning for ESPN?" And I thought it was my brother Jimmy playing a prank on me. I hung up on the guy. I hung up, and he called me back. He said, no, this is serious. And I auditioned, and I had never really done a stand-up before, and they hired me like within 2 weeks. Wow. That was in 1995, and now I'm going into my 27th season covering the NFL for ESPN.
Well, when you get to the 30th, we got to throw a big party.
At Umberto's.
At Umberto's.
Yeah. I'm there, definitely.
Absolutely. He knows how to throw a party. That I can tell you. But, it's so, when like I said, I mentioned to people that I was having you on, and it's like a glow opens up, it just, the room glowed because so many people know who you are. You're synonymous with football. I mean, obviously your Philadelphia ties, with the Eagles and all that. And I've seen you in so many different, we've run into each other in so many different cities, and, whether it's Green Bay, whether it's a Super Bowl. I think one of the funnest interviews that we did before was when I was doing the Fox and Friends interview from the Super Bowl in Minneapolis. And it was funny that without even bringing up his name, without him even being there, you mentioned Brian Kilmeade and his book, and all of a sudden Pete Hegseth's like, what are we doing, a promo for Brian Kilmeade? So
yeah, I think it was with Bill Hemmer, if I remember.
No, that one was with Pete Hegseth. We did that.
Okay, with Pete, yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of Brian Kilmeade's books, and I think he does a wonderful job on television. He's a Long Island guy, right?
Yeah, he's Massapequa. He went to CW Post.
Yeah. So I think he does a wonderful job as a writer and a broadcaster, and his radio show is very good too. There's a lot of people who come out of Long Island who's done pretty well in the broadcast and entertainment business. When you grow up, as you know, Big, in the 516 area code, you got to be able to communicate to get what you want. As I always tell my daughters, is, the number one thing that you can get out of your education is to be able to communicate so that you can get what you want in life, and that's, I'm not talking about necessarily money, but, that you can make relationships, create relationships that last a long time, like you and I, and have value in your life. And when you have those kind of relationships that are valuable in your life and you start putting them all together, now you've made a lifetime of important relationships that can help people. Like, you and I help each other all the time. And that's the way it is in the NFL, It's really not about any kind of special talent. I got a face for radio, so it's not about my good looks. It's about, it's about developing long-lasting relationships with people. So, when I'm at a game and I'm talking to the Giants PR guys, like Corey Rush or Pat Hamlin, or Corey's out in San Francisco now, but, that if I say, listen, I need Eli Manning after the game, I'm going to get an interview with Eli Manning when other people are not going to get it. So that's the coin of the realm, is having those relationships and doing right by people. That's the key.
You know what? I agree with you 1,000%. I think, people always say to me, how do you keep all these names in line? How do you do all that? And I always say, look, you know what? I do the best that I can, and I don't overpromise or underdeliver. When I say I can do something, I do it. If I can't do something, I'll be the first one that says, hey, I can't do something, or I don't know somebody, but I can find somebody that maybe might be able to help answer your question or do what you're asking.
Yeah.
I become a glossary, I guess. All right, let's look through Big Daddy's glossary, see, or his netbook, as someone said to me one time. And I'm like, listen, you know what? If you do right by people, they're always going to remember, and it's always the guys that are at the bottom. Like I relate very well when we talk about football, NFL, to equipment managers, because I grew up in that world as a kid, and guys that started as equipment managers all of a sudden elevated to vice president of a team, or at Nike, our mutual friend at Nike, Mike Newsom. I know Mike my 30-something years, whatever it is, 35 years, and we actually lived together for 7 of those years. So, and he's one of the guys that I always say I owe a lot to, because he helped me cultivate a lot of relationships that I probably wouldn't have had it not been for him. But had it not been for his old boss, who I'm sure you're familiar with, the Hampton family with the Jets. I know, some of them have passed away, but I've known them since I'm in 8th grade. We're going back to the, 80s, early 80s. And those relationships are what led me down certain lanes, to meet people like yourself. I wouldn't run into everybody somewhere. And, obviously I stick out, so everybody wants to know, who is that guy? Is he a player? Is he a former player? What's the story? And then, look, I'm an insurance guy that just happens to know a lot of people. That's basically how I used to say it. Now, I guess I have a little bit more tentacles, being that I get to do something like this with you. People ask me, what made me get into this? And I look at it as I'm asking all my friends to do me a favor and come on board with me, and let's talk. Let's not talk about scores and highlights, and let's chat it up. Let's talk about things that we've done or know or met, people we've met, so and so.
Well, what I've always taught my daughters, and now my granddaughters, and my students at St. Joe's or wherever I teach around the country, do speeches, I always say, you have to come with an attitude of gratitude and humility, because you're working in a world where people are highly accomplished at what they do. So I take the world of the NFL. If you make it to the National Football League, you're one of 32 teams, one of the coaching staff on 32 teams, players, equipment managers, security guards. You're working with the best of the best. And so you have to have a level of humility when you speak with them and try to understand where they're coming from first. So every single player in the locker room, it doesn't matter if they're third string safety or starting quarterback, they were the best player on their high school. They were probably one of the best players at their college. Clearly one of the best players ever to come out of their town. So they have already achieved a level of success that most people can only dream about.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk to them, make sure you understand where they've come from and how they got there, and understand their story. and don't impose your viewpoint on them. Make theirs come out. And I think that's the most important thing that you can do when you're doing my job. And, the interesting thing is I'm still doing it. It's weird, right? I got all this gray hair, and communication schools around the country graduate 12, 15,000 sports reporters a year, and they all want to work for ESPN. And, I try to stay as relevant as I possibly can, and try to continue to do the job at a high level. But, there are a lot of good young people who are working in the business now who are coming up. And I try to talk to them about how to do the job right.
Well, listen, you're right now, I would have to say you're like the Godfather. Your staying power is incredible, and look, you're one of the best of the best. I mean, and I'm not being biased. I'm just telling it the way it is.
That's nice. That's nice.
It's
thank you. Thank you very much.
Of course, you look. How many times I would see you Sunday mornings, before games, that you're on that show when you used to do it with Merrill Hodge at 8:00 in the morning on a Sunday. What was it? Kick? I forget what it was called, but I would say
I'm still the host of the show. It's called the NFL Matchup Show, and we tape it every Friday morning at NFL Films. Big, where NFL Films is in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, and this is my 20th year hosting the show. I started out with Ron Jaworski and Merrill Hodge. Louis Riddick was on the show for a while. Greg Cosell now and Matt Bowen do a great job of breaking down film. And I'm just the ball distributor. I'm the host of the show. Try to make it interesting, a little irreverent, ask good follow-up questions, make sure that their points, which are exo points, sometimes they get into the weeds on stuff, and I try to illuminate things so that the audience can really, this past weekend, we had 3 time slots on Saturday and Sunday. We had almost 1 million viewers of the show. So our core audience has never been stronger, big. We have a core of people around the country who look for the show, who are dedicated to the show. It's the show that the coaches and the players watch. Mm-hmm. It's the longest running NFL studio show on television, big. So it's been around, started by the late great Steve Sable at NFL Films. And, to be involved with this show is such an honor. It really is. I'm totally humbled by this experience of being, it's the number one X's and O's show in the NFL. Everybody looks at it, coaches will watch it and say they picked up this, or players will say, you know what, that's pretty interesting. And Matt Bowen, Matt Bowen's done such a great job of breaking down the secondary. He's a former NFL safety, as you know, played with the Packers, played with the Washington football team back in the day. Greg Cosell, he is the nephew of Howard Cosell. He's a great broadcaster. You can, you can see him all over Twitter and you hear him on radio. But I don't think there's anybody better in breaking down quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks, than Greg. Greg now does a blog with Mike Tannenbaum and Joe Banner. They have this blog called 33rd Team that's excellent. And every Friday, Greg does a segment within their blog just on young quarterbacks. That's terrific.
Wow, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. I was in Foxborough last week for Saints and Patriots, and I'll be in Foxborough this week. I'm anchoring SportsCenter's coverage of Brady Bowl, the showdown in Foxborough between Brady and Belichick. It should be interesting on Sunday night. Right now, the Bucs are so far ahead of the Patriots in development. I'm afraid it'll be a lopsided game, Big. I really am.
Yeah, it's and I think knowing Tommy as well as I do,
yeah,
I'm sure he's ready to put on a performance of that will.
Yeah, he comes off as a nice guy, but the inner core of him is about the most competitive person that I've ever met.
Yes, and
there's a fire in his belly that is nuclear powered, no question.
He is. It's funny, and it comes from his father too, because I know his father too. So it's funny. He always says, he used to say to me when I would see him, he goes, "Just remember one thing, Big Daddy, I'm the real Tom Brady." And I would be like, "Yes, Mr. Brady, yes."
Yeah.
Tommy has been a good friend, and you're right, he is one guy that loves to win, and look, he prepares to win. That's the difference between him and a lot of other athletes.
Yes, proper. I'll give it to you. The 7 P's, I call them. Proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. Actually, that's 6. I left one of them out because this is probably a family broadcast. But as I said to my kids, did you do your proper prior preparation? And that's what Brady's all about. I mean, he's one of those guys, the cliches are infinite, but we'll go through them. He's got the answers to the test. He knows the answers to the test before you even ask the questions, and what does that mean? Pre-snap, he wins before the snap of the ball. And the ball comes out so quickly. Things will be a little bit different because, he's going against the boogeyman, Bill Belichick in Foxborough. So there'll be a lot of emotions swirling around, I'm sure. Not having Scotty Miller in the slot, I don't know what the status of Antonio Brown is, but,
Gronk's beat up.
Gronk's beat up. He got beat up on Sunday in L.A., got that hit in the ribs. So, I know the point spread's now 6.5. So a lot of people took the points, and it's driven the point spread up. It was at 5.5.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be pretty interesting what happens on Sunday night. But there'll be a lot of conflicting emotions for sure for everybody. I covered all 10 of his Super Bowls. I was there when Mo Lewis knocked out Drew Bledsoe. I was there in the hotel in New Orleans at that Marriott. We were all waiting in the lobby when Bledsoe and Brady went up to Belichick's suite, and Bledsoe came down first, very, very unhappy, disappointed that he wasn't going to start in that Super Bowl and that Belichick picked Brady over Bledsoe. So I've gone through the history of this entire team. I was there for the Tuck game in the snow against Gruden and the Raiders. I've seen just about every single AFC championship game, all the Peyton and Brady matchups. I think the buildup for this game is as big as any regular season game I've ever seen. I don't know if you saw my thing on Countdown last Sunday with the boys. The front row seat behind the visitors' bench, that row in section 131 in Foxborough, behind the visitors' bench, the front row is going for $6,900 a seat. Super Bowl prices.
Wow, yeah, that is.
So you want to get 2 seats? That's 14 large.
Listen, I can watch it at home, but luckily I have the good fortune of having the access to get in wherever I need to get in. But that's a big ticket. And, I've been up there many a times due to watching him play. And then, one of my former college teammates and dear friends is Scott Zolak, who does their radio.
Yeah. And he does a great job. I actually listened to that broadcast in my ear during the game. Bob and Scott do a terrific job together. They really do.
He is hilarious, and
yes,
I sat with him. He goes, "Come sit with me in the box, come, hang out." And I'm like, "All right, I'll sit in the back." All of a sudden, I was like laughing because it was comical the way he calls a game.
Yeah.
He's calling out a guy and he stinks and I hate it. I'm like, oh my.
The other thing too is he'll play to the crowd. He'll hold up signs and stuff.
Yeah.
He does it. He just does it the way you're supposed to do it. He connects. He connects with the audience is what he does.
He is definitely, and he has that radio show that he does during the week. He has a radio show and a TV show that airs during the week. And I've had the good fortune of being a guest on it. They've been to so many Super Bowls that they're always there. So every time I've been to a Super Bowl that they're at, I'll stop in for a guest appearance and laugh and yuck it up a little bit. But anyway, the one thing that I want to have the viewers and listeners become familiar with is, you've written a couple books, and talk about that real quick.
Sure. So I wrote a political book about political biography because I covered politics for the Philadelphia Inquirer. People don't really associate that with me, but I covered national politics. I covered 3 presidential campaigns. And then I covered Frank Rizzo's last 2 campaigns for mayor in Philadelphia and the rough and tumble city politics of Philadelphia. So those are my roots. I wrote his biography called The Last Big Man in Big City America. It was made into a stage play 3 years ago in Philadelphia, and it's been optioned as a movie a couple of times, but it still sells. It came out in the 10th anniversary edition recently. You can get it on Amazon. And then I wrote a book called How Football Explains America, which is how and why the game was created and how American culture influenced the game of tackle football in America. And it was a highly successful book. It's a book that I use as a lecturing tool to talk about how to write about football and the history of football. It's called How Football Explains America. And then I wrote the definitive account of the Eagles Super Bowl championship with Doug Peterson and Nick Foles. As you can see over my shoulder, Philly special, how the Eagles won their first Super Bowl title with all the inside access that I had to that team because, I live right outside of Philly, have since 1985. People associate me with the Eagles. I'm not an Eagles fan, but I am very close to the team. I'm a fan of staying home. So when the Eagles win big, it's good for me.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But as you know, I covered both of the Giants Super Bowl championships and covered a lot of the Patriots. So, and I'm always in Florham Park with the Jets. I covered both of the Ravens Super Bowl championships. So, I'm Mr. Easy Pass. Up and down I-95. But yeah, the book Philly Special just came out in paperback, and again, you can get it on Amazon. But it was a labor of love writing that book because you spend 25 years covering a team up close like that. People don't understand the sacrifices that you make and your family makes. You miss a lot of Saturday nights with your kids and your wife. You miss you miss 25 years worth of Sunday dinners with your family to dedicate yourself to covering a team in the NFL. And so when the Eagles won, it was sort of the culmination of a lot of work. And I dedicated the book to my family because of, the sacrifices that they had to make in order for me to be on the road with the team for 25 years.
Well, then that's great. And, it's I'm going to hit the road for the first time in over a year, since 2 years ago. I'll be at Denver, Baltimore this weekend. And then I'm sure I'm going to see you that Buccaneers Eagles game.
Thursday night. Yeah, we'll see you. Dan Graziano is going to be out there for ESPN in Denver for that game.
I love Dan. He's a good man. I've seen
good man. You like Dan. And then I'll see you on Thursday night.
Yep, for sure. I'll be there for that big Eagles Buccaneers game, and we'll catch up in person.
I have one question for you, Big, before we rock and roll here.
Mm-hmm.
My question for you is, what's the guiding principle of your life?
You know what? It is to be who I am. And what I mean by that is just be real. If you ask me if it's black, I say it's black. If you ask me if it's white, it's white. There's no gray. I think people appreciate that. And I think, I'm humble. I'm not, sometimes people put you at a pedestal or they think you're this and that due to relationships and acquaintances and friendships. But I think, look, I'm a blessed guy. I joke around that, look, I survived an aneurysm, I've survived coronavirus, and I survived a divorce. So God's not ready for me yet. He has a plan. And I really, truly believe in that plan. And I'm not fully accomplished yet. I have a lot of goals and dreams. We talk about Brian Kilmeade. I've been trying to work on a show with him, and I think we're going to get it done, that, he would be the host and I would be the cleanup guy. Because Joe Buck was laughing. I said to Joe when I interviewed him, I said, my ego's not that big to want to be the host off the get-go. And he goes, don't worry, Kilmeade's is. So you got the right guy. And I was like, all right, Joe, as long as you said it, yeah, I agree with you. But, I really, I've gotten really into this world that you're so successful in, and I admire. And I really think I could bring something different to the table. And just by doing these interviews, I think I've opened up quite a few eyes because, one, it's how do you get the interview? Like I had Andy Reid on this show the week of the Super Bowl. And everybody's like, how? I'm like, well, I know Andy since he was in Philly. So those relationships, like we discussed earlier, those things allow you to get those things done because at least, they trust you,
yeah,
they value you. And when they say yes, it's like, even you to say yes, I know you're going to say it's no big deal, blah, blah, blah. But for me, it means the world because, like ESPN is supposed to be the leader in sports. Sal Paolantonio, you're the leader of the NFL. And that's the way I look at it.
You know what?
What you may think.
You know what it means to me? It means one regular pie. That's what it means.
Oh, absolutely. If you want me, I'll bring it on Thursday. Next Thursday. But we have to figure out where you're parked so I can put it in your car.
I'm going to come up to Long Island. I've been meaning to come up. I got to come up, and we'll go to Umberto's together, and I look forward to seeing you on Thursday, Big, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you so much for being here with us. And tell all the viewers and listeners where they could find you on social media because you're a must follow.
Well, I'm not on Twitter. I'm one of those rare birds in broadcasting, not on Twitter, but I do have a very modest Instagram account, Sal Pal ESPN. But I would just say, hey, enjoy the matchup show, watch the matchup show, and tell your friends about it. Record it, DVR it, whatever you're going to do, and tell your family and friends about it, and create a little chain about it, and we can still grow the audience. That would be good because I think what Greg and Matt do and bring to television is different from everybody else. So I think people will get a lot out of it, and I'm just proud to be part of the show. The NFL Matchup Show on ESPN2 on Saturday mornings and ESPN on Sunday mornings. And I'll be in Foxborough on Sunday NFL Countdown. The entire crew's going up there. Rex and Randy Moss and Matt Hasselback, Sam Ponder and Teddy Bruschi. And it's going to be a fun time on Sunday. We're looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on the show, Big.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I will be watching from Denver. And again, for everyone out there, remember, Big Daddy and Friends, where we tell the story behind the stories. Again, Sal, thank you, man. I love you, and I will see you in 2 weeks.
Love you, Big. See you.
All right, take care.